What's up, guys? We're on to the next one. In this episode, we are going to be working on some handrail for a cabin up Big Cottonwood Canyon here in Utah. I went and picked up the steel for it today, so we're going to get started on it. We're going to have to clear the table completely off because we've got to lay out where all the base plates are going to go. I'll show you guys my drawings and show you how I'm going to lay that out. Because it's up the canyon and it's going up the walkway to this old lady's cabin, they're all sloped. So it's all going to be on an angle going up the hill. I'll show you guys the measurements that I took and how I'm going to have to lay it out, and we'll get rolling on it. Let's do it. Alright, so we got our steel out here on the trailer. We're going to get it unloaded. Got McCoy out here behind the camera today. He's going to help us out. So let's see if we can't get this in here. We'll start laying it out and figure out what we got to cut. Stay down here. Got it. Got it. Okay, so we're back over at the table now. We're going to start getting this laid out so that we can get a cut list going and start cutting our pieces. So here's what we've got. If you look at this drawing here, this is the smallest section. This is the smallest section right here. And so the guy that gave me a call and asked if I'd come give him a bid, he had already set the sonotubes and he had already set the bolts and everything. So he actually did a really good job laying them out, so they're really pretty square and pretty accurate, which is kind of rare. But I've taken a measurement from center of bolt to center of bolt. That's basically how I'm going to build these sections of railing, is just from these two measurements here. So I've got 17 inches. So that's how much drop there is from this sonotube to this sonotube, is 17 inches from the top of the footing to top of footing. And then it's 42 3/4 from center of bolt to center of bolt. And when I pulled those, I pulled from this one to this one, and then from this one to this one to make sure that they were the same, which they are. So we're good there. So now what we're going to do, I want to start with the section number 1, which is the smallest section, being 42 3/4 from footing to footing. We're going to start with this one and lay it out, see how it goes. So let's get going on it. Okay, so we got this laid out. The edge of the table is going to be our lowest footing. That's top of footing on the other one. We've got our angle laid out. So now we just need to take our measurement for our posts. We're going to use our T-bevel to get our angle so that we can cut it on the saw and make our miter joints, because we're going to have a miter joint here because you got your post coming up and then it comes up on an angle here. So we got to split that angle and do a miter there, and then on this one as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the saw after we get our angle figured out here. We're going to put that on there and get it perfect. Then we'll take this over to the saw and set our blade. Let's do it. Okay, so we got our tube in the saw. We're going to start with just our posts. We're going to cut them square first. We'll come back and miter them after. So we've got 2 at 36 that we got to cut. We got 2 at 44 1/8 and 1 at 50. So we're going to go into warp mode. Okay, so we're over here at the saw. I'm just loosening the 2 bolts for my backstop here. We're going to change our blade angle so that we can get these miter cuts done. So I just set my T-bevel right here on my saw blade, and then I just get it to where, just tap it to where it's right where I want it. And then I start by tightening the closest bolt first, watching my T-bevel the whole time. Make sure it doesn't move. Okay, looks good. That should put us right on. Let's give that a try. Okay, so you can see we got our angle. So we're going to cut that one, then we're going to check it, make sure it's right. So the good thing about laying it out on the table is, when you lay it out on the table, that gives you soapstone marks, so you can go over there, you can set it on the table, and you can physically see that your angles are right. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to cut this one, go over and check it on the table, and then we'll come back and do our other angle. So we've got 2 angles, so they're going to be like this. So you got a long side and a short side that you got to pull your measurements on. And that's another thing you got to remember. So I'll show you guys what I mean when we go over there. Okay, so you can see here, we're laying that. It's kind of hard to see with the reflection of the lights on the table, but I lay that on my soapstone marks. And then I can make sure that it's exactly right. So we're good. So now we're going to move on to cutting this other end. What I was talking about before with the long side and the short side is you've got 2 angles like this that are parallel. So you're going to measure a long side and a short side. You got to make sure that you measure that right. So our measurement, if I remember right, 44 1/8. Yeah, 44 1/8. And that's 44 1/8 if you look right here on the table. So you're 44 1/8 from the long side to the short side. So we just got to make sure we keep that in mind when we're cutting angles like that. Alright, let's go do it. Okay, so I put this in the saw, but if you don't put this in the saw right, then it's going to screw you up too. So you got to pull your measurements short to long, and you got to cut short to long. So I've got it in the saw now, and you can stand back here and just what I do is I look at the blade. So I know the blade's right here, and then I want my angle right here. If you put it in backwards, if you put it in like this, then you're going long to long and your angles are going to be like this. So we got to make sure they're like this. So all you got to do is rotate it 180 degrees. So we're there. And And now we're just going to pull our measurement. 44 1/8 is what we're shooting for. And then this is kind of tricky, but I like to look down the blade and see exactly where my measurement hits. And then I will tighten up the vise. Sometimes it moves in the vise when you tighten it up. So I'll tighten up the vise and then I'll check it again. And I think we're right on the money, so I'm going to go with that. Fire in the hole. So I've laid that on the table. It's hitting just perfect. This is where our post is going to go. Okay, so our angle's good. We got to cut one more just like that one that's going in the middle. That's what the customer wanted. Bottom rail, middle rail, top rail, and then that's it. So we're going to cut one more just like this one. It's going to go in the middle. It'll be the exact same measurement because all you're doing is moving it up. It's just parallel to this one. So we're going to do that, and then we'll start working on our miter cuts for this because we're going to have to miter cut the posts. And I'll show you guys how I do that in a minute. So if you come over here, Mr. Shorty Pants can see that. This is what we're going to use to figure out our miter cuts. So we're just going to use our protractor. I like these kits. They come with centering head, square, and protractor. So putting it together is the fun part. Okay, so this angle right here, that angle is going to be the same as the top. The top of our railing sits like right here, but obviously the table's not big enough. So this is the same angle. So we're just going to use this right here to get our angle. So I'll just take my protractor here, angle finder, or whatever you want to call it, get that as close as I can. Okay, and then I'm going to lock it down. This is a really steep angle. So this angle here, you got to remember, you're going to have to split this from here to here. That's a steep angle, especially on my bandsaw. So sometimes you're better off to just mark it and cut it with a zip disc or cut-off wheel. So I think we're going to do that on the top end, but on the bottom end, this is our angle. It's the same here, this angle right here. So because that's such a bigger angle, so it's 67. So I'll write down 67 degrees. And that's what that one is. This one here, I'm saying that's pretty dang good. And then it's always good to double check. Okay, calling that good. So now you take your angle, which on that one is 112.5. So we'll say 112. Okay. So then you have to split that angle. So it's going to be split like so. Okay, that's kind of what it's going to look like. So what I like to do is I like to take and draw that on the table. Just draw it on the edge of my table. And then I'll split it. So half of 112 is 56. Okay, so I take 56 and then I check it. Okay, so I'll make a mark, and that is splitting that angle. I can see that that's splitting that angle. But what I mean is this and this, these should be the same. We're going to go over and we're going to get our saw set to this angle, and we're going to miter our post for this end, and then we'll lay out this one because that is a steep angle. So let's take the post over to the saw and we'll get that one cut. Okay, so we got our top miter cut good. Turned out well. So now we've got to figure this out. We know that angle is 67 degrees. So now we're just going to do the same thing here. I'm going to take and mark 67 degrees. Okay, which is this angle right here. You don't want to split the wrong angle. So you got to make sure if it's the obtuse angle or the acute angle, and on this one it's the acute angle. So now I'm going to take and split the 67 degrees 33.5, right? Yes. And then we'll take and mark it. Shoot. Okay. So that angle is split. You can look at it and see that that's two even parts, just like we did here. Okay, so that's a steep angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a measurement and I'm going to mark that tube 48 and a half. Okay. So we're going to take this. Now this is a long to long. Okay. I got to sharpen my soapstone. On guard. I'm going to take this. We know that's our angle, okay? Mark that. Sometimes it works a little better on these if you use Sharpie, because they're all oiled up. So you can see I've got this side, that side, all marked out. And then these two, if I did it right, these two should meet right where I want them to. And they do. Okay, that should get our top rail piece. And then we're going to do the same thing to our post. But we're going to mark from the base to the top. And we're deducting our base plate, which is 3/16 steel, so we're going to go 35 13/16. Okay. Okay, do our marks match? That's affirmative. Okay, so we'll double check our measurement one more time. Wow, 35 3/16. Okay, we're gonna cut those with a zip disc. I'm gonna put some earplugs in and get cutting. Okay, so we got these fit up, looking pretty good. There's a teeny bit of gap here, but that's the name of the game. We'll be able to fill it up. So that's the first one. We don't have it tacked yet, it's just fit up. So we're gonna go through, and I like to bevel my joints, especially my miter joints, so that I'm sure that it gets good penetration. I don't have to worry about it cracking or anything in the future. So that's the first one, but it's getting late, so we're gonna go in and get some dinner. Okay, first section, we got it all tacked up. We are ready to weld it out and start getting the base plates prepped up. These base plates are the plates that the customer used to fit the J-bolts. These plates are the plates that the customer used to set the J-bolts, and he asked us if we wanted to use them. Told him sure, it'll save us a little bit of time. So we'll clean them up. The shear marks are less than desirable. Kind of bend them over on the edges, but we'll clean them up. We'll get them looking nice again. I think I'm going to round the corners, and I'm going to punch these holes out just a hair bigger to give us a little bit of room to play with, since it's clearing the crap up Big Cottonwood Canyon. So first I'm going to get these cleaned up, and I'm going to fit those to that. The reason I'm going to do that is because all my measurements are off the center of the bolt holes. So I'm going to get these all prepped up, punched, cleaned up, fit them on that, and then check my measurements before I weld that whole thing out, so I don't have to cut it apart and weld it twice. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get these drilled out, and then we'll be able to fit them. Alright, I got my nice sharpened soapstone. I'm going to work on laying these out. They're 5 inches wide, so I'm just going to take and mark 1.5 inches. .2 inches right on the dot. So then we'll take these with our square, hold it up here till our square is perfectly on the tube, tack it, and then we're going to check our measurements. Love it! Get a big old nasty ball on the end of that. It's always fun. Moment of truth. Gonna have to go get a helper. Okay, we checked our measurement, put our square on the base plate here, center of the hole, pulled the tape off the back side of the square across here, and we're within 1/16 of 42 3/4, which is what our measurement was. So it took me both hands and my pinky toe to get that measured by myself, but everybody else was busy playing. So alright, we're good here. I think we're good to go ahead and weld it up. I'm a little concerned about it shrinking. I think I'm going to try and clamp it to the table and weld some of these verticals just to hold it. Once I get the verticals all welded, I should be okay, but I'm going to try that, see how it goes. What's up, guys? We're back out here tonight. It's already 8:30. Had some salesman come over and completely chewed up the whole night. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can't get this one all cleaned up, get it done, and then possibly start laying it out. I don't know, we'll see how far I get. Probably not gonna make it that far, but I'm at least hoping I can get this one cleaned up tonight. So we'll go ahead and see what we can do. Okay, we got one piece done. Got it all cleaned up. Everything except the base plates, just in case. And I'll do those last. They'll be quick to clean up. So, I think that's gonna do it for tonight. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay, so we're gonna see if we can't get this second section laid out and built, and then we're going to move on to the long section. My Saturday, so I got most of the day today, so I'm hoping I can get these knocked out and ready for powder coat today, so we'll see how far we can get. I think the first thing I'm going to do though is fill up the air conditioner with water. It's going to be 102 today, so we'll do what we can to try to stay cool. Okay, we're going to see if we can't get this laid out. Here's our second section, and I've just got the same type of measurements. We got our two footings. I measured from center of J-bolt to center of J-bolt, and I made sure they were the same front and back, which they are. So we're just going to lay this out on the table and build off of these measurements right here. Let's do it. Alright, section number 2 is laid out. Kind of nice on this one. There's less slope on this piece, so I was able to fit the whole thing on the table, so I'll be able to lay all my pieces out on here, get it nice and flat. Another thing that I was going to point out get it laid out like this. See if I can get this where you can see it without the reflection on the table. Right there. So I've laid this out. If you take your square and you draw a line from this corner to this corner, that's splitting this angle. So you don't have to use your angle finder to measure this and then divide it by 2. You don't have to do that. You can just bring your angle finder up here or your T-bevel, set it on this because this angle is the same as this angle, and then throw it in the saw, set your blade, cut them to that, and you're good to go. So there's more than one way to get that done, but just wanted to point that out. Alright, let's go ahead and start cutting, and we're going to get these pieces laid out on the table, see if we can't get it fit up. Okay, so we got our pieces all cut out here. Laid out on our marks. That's just how I like to do it, because then you know, as long as you lay out your marks correctly, you'll be right on. So it's almost 2 o'clock. I got some daddy duties. I got to run pick up McCoy from birthday party and pick up some lunch, so we'll get back to this when I get back. Back from lunch, we're gonna see if we can't get this all tacked up, welded out, cleaned up, and then start on the big section. So here we go. Okay, so let me show you guys what I got going here. I figured out a way to check my measurement pretty dang accurately. So what I've got is I got this piece of aluminum angle that I had sitting over there on the rack. It's nice and straight. So what I've done is I've clamped it down here. I know that I'm 11/5/8 drop from the face of this foot to here, which is perpendicular to that foot. So it's 11 5/8 drop. So what I've done is I've clamped this at 11 5/8. Then I took this square and I've checked it both ways. I've checked it off the foot, center of the hole, up this way, and made a mark, Sharpie mark right there. And then I've also checked it this way, center of hole. Okay. Then I came down to this end and I marked where the center of the holes are there. And I got this nifty little tape measure level. I think that's actually what it's called. So then I take my tape, hook it on that one, come down to this one, and I'm 68 and almost 3/16. Pretty close to 3/16. 68 and 3/16. So center here, 68 5/16. So we're within 1/8 of an inch. And I drilled out the holes on the base plates, so I think I'm gonna run with it. If I have to, I'm just gonna take an end grinder with me with a carbide burr. If I have to grind out one of these holes just a little bit, and the bolts aren't exactly straight up and down, so I can screw a nut on one of them and tap them over if I have to. So I think this is gonna work. I'm actually gonna use this same system to check that one, just to make sure that it's right on. I would hate to have to go get them powder coated, take them up there, and then not fit, so I have to cut them apart, re-weld them, powder coat again, because then you're not making any money. So alright, we're going to go ahead, and I think I'm confident enough with these. I'm going to weld the base plates on these, and then the second one will be done, and I'll start on the third one. Okay, so we got our table all cleaned up. We're going to need the whole length of the table. This is only a 12-foot table. So I'm going to have a pipe stand at that end, probably holding that end of the rail up once we get it full length. I'm going to start at this end. I'm going to lay it out so that this end is the lowest base plate here. And then the next one will be here. And then the last one will be off the table. So we're going to try that, see how it goes. So let's get laying it out.
Searching for greatness in a sea of the dying and shameless, a sea of the aimless. I don't wanna be one of the nameless. I'ma wake up with the mindset that one day I'm gonna make it, and I don't think I'll be fine if I don't break my limitations. Don't try to stop me, I exist to write my own story. I'll make a decision if I want some peace or if I want the glory. Yeah, don't want a life that is complacent or possibly boring. I just want a life that is worth every day exploring. My whole life I just wanted someone who would notice me. My whole life I just wanted to be somebody to be. Yeah, I just wanna be great. Yeah, I just wanna be great. Yeah, I just wanna be great.
Okay, I got the first section all laid out. I know it's probably hard for you guys to see with the reflection on the table. Base plates can sit right here. Got our incline coming up this way. So we're going to get that piece laid out, maybe even tacked up. And then we'll start building this other section. I got a plate tacked to the end of the table. This is where the base plate needs to sit. This is center of tube, and this right here, this line, that's center of J-bolt. So we're going to see what we can't get done on this big section. A little more complicated because you got double angles and different inclines when you switch from this section to that section. So it'll be a little bit tricky, but let's see what we can get done. Alright, quick update. Got these parts cut out for this first half of the section. This piece is a little bit more complicated than I thought. If you look over here, I'm gonna have to split this. The elevation that it gains on this section is more than it gains on this section. So I couldn't make the top rail one straight piece. When it gets to here, it's actually going to be a little bit sharper of an angle. So I'm just going to split it there. I'll be able to weld it, clean it up nice, but that does complicate things just a little bit. So I'm going to get this first section tacked up. Alright, we're back at it today. Got the other half of this to get laid out. This is where our base plate's going to go for the other end. It actually is going to have to come up at a sharper angle. So we're going to have to get creative to figure out the angles for this. So I think what I'm going to do to start, because I don't have the table space to mark it and then figure out the exact angle, I think I'm going to get this piece cut first, this leg. And then I might have to run a string line down that. And if I run a string line down it where 36 inches is, because that's the height of our post, then I should be able to get the T-bevel set off the string and my post and know what the angle is. So we're going to give that a try and see how it goes. Let's do it. Okay, so here's what we got. Got a string line set up here. Just got a magnet with string tied to this outside corner. This is the angle that it's jumping up to when it gets to this section. I've got this piece of tube clamped here. I know this is square off the table, and I've squared this off of this piece or this line. So I know that this post is square. I've marked my 35 and 13/16 here, and I've set the string to that. Then I've taken my T-bevel, set it up here, and I got that marked perfectly. So then I'm going to draw it on the table, split the angle, and I know what that one will be now. That way I can cut this one and this end of that piece. Next thing I got to do is figure out what angle that middle piece has got to be, because I got to get that close enough that the gap's not so big I can't weld it. But it looks to me like that piece is going to be pretty close to square, maybe even close enough that all I'm going to do is just throw it up there with a square end, and if there is a little gap, I'll just trigger it in, and I'm just going to blend it with the grinder after, make it look nice and pretty and smooth. So I think we're going to go to that point. We'll get this marked on the table, split our angle, and go cut this piece and start cutting this top rail piece. So then we'll split our angle. So those two angles should be the same, which they are. Now we're going to take this, mark the old T-bevel. Okay, then we'll go get our saw blade set to this, and we'll cut those two pieces and come back and take a look at this. Okay, quick update. That angle's too steep for my saw. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that post piece, I'll mark it, and I think I'm going to use my little portaband saw over here and see how that goes. If it goes well, I might get a wild hair and try to do the long one on that, but that's going to be tough. I might have to call one of the boys out here to help me hold it up. Let's see what we can do. I think that worked good. Holding the long section is going to be a little tricky, but I think that worked good. Okay, here's what we got. We got our long piece marked with the steep angle. We are getting crafty. So we've got the end of it rigged up there with the crane to support it. And it actually feels pretty nice. I've checked to make sure that's level with the table. So we're going to give it a run and see how it goes. That is superb. Okay, so now we're going to get our middle rail and our bottom rail cut. I'm going to run a string line on there to here. Again, get my angle, go to the saw, cut those, bring them back and tack them. We'll throw a bunch more tacks on it so it doesn't move, and we'll go to welding. So let's do it. Okay, got our pieces set in here. Actually look really good. I'm pretty pleased with that. See, there's just a little bit of a offset there, but I think it's going to turn out good. The standoff from the base plate to the bottom of the tube is consistent. See if I can't get some tacks on this, keep it from moving, and then it's going to be ready to weld out. So
it's time for today's super cool tool.
alright, so for today's super cool tool, this is something that anybody can own. It's something that can come in handy in any type of situation when you're mechanicking or fabricating or fitting something. And what it is it's called a dog and a wedge. So here's your dog, and then you have a wedge. Most of the time when I'm using a dog and a wedge, I'm using a big wedge, like a log splitting wedge like this. You can get these at Home Depot, Tractor Supply, any hardware store like that. It's just a log splitting wedge, it's steel. I picked up a couple of those, and then you just build your own dog. And the reason they call this a dog, I'm assuming, is because it's like a dog's head. It's the shape of a dog's head. I don't know that for sure, I'm just assuming. I'm going to show you guys where this type of setup comes in handy. I'm just going to use a small wedge on this one. I don't need the great big one. It's just handrail. It's not super structural or anything like that. We don't have to use a whole lot of pressure. If you're fitting a tank or something really heavy, real thick material, and you've got to move like 1-inch plate, 3/4 plate, that's when you get a big heavy dog and a big heavy wedge. So what you do is, like for this situation, hopefully you guys can see this, but that is, it's sticking up. And something's going on here where either the piece at the end of the table was not level. I've gotten a tube before that has a wowie in it. Sometimes that could be the case. I know my table's not perfectly flat, and sometimes that does cause some issues. If you look right here, that handrail's sticking up off the table right in here, probably 1/8 of an inch. That's not ideal, but I could either build my own table for, $1,600, or I could buy one for $10,000. So where I was just getting my business up and running, this is the kind of table, this exact table is the kind of table that I was trained on, that I learned on. I've spent endless hours fabricating on a table exactly like this. Same dimensions and everything. So it's worked great for me. So I thought, you know what, for the price point, I'm just going to go with that. So anyway, where you've got a situation where your material's up like this, there's a couple things you can do. You can use a half clamp where you take a C-clamp like that. You cut the top end of it off, then you can tack the bottom end, and then you drive the clamp down, and that will drive this down. This does the same thing. So what you do is you take your dog, and it needs to fit over the material. See how this fits over the material? So I'm going to tack this to my table. Okay, so I'm just going to tack that right now. Okay, so I've put 2 tacks on there. I'm going to take my wedge and I'm going to drive it underneath this. So I'm going to take my hammer. I'm just going to tap that down. And you'll actually feel it when you run out of it. When you tap the hammer, you'll feel it in the vibration of the hammer when it's solid up against the table. And it is solid up against the table. And then you can feel this joint. We're flush there. So now, I think I'm actually going to have to do it. This tube's rolled just a little bit, so I'm going to do it to this too. But I'm going to tack this one. That looks good right where it's at. I'm going to tack that. So I'm going to tack it in all 4 places. Okay, and then when you're done, knock your wedge out. Break your dog off. Now I'm going to move the dog over to this one. Same thing. Another pointer when you're doing this, if your tacks are on this side, you don't want to drive your wedge on this side. So my tacks are on this side, I don't want to drive my wedge on this side, or it'll usually just bend over the dog and snap it off. So you're actually pushing against the material when you put your wedge on the same side of the tack. So I'm going to put my wedge in. Okay, so I'm going to start by getting as many of these verticals as I can. I'm hoping that that will keep it from turning into a banana. So I'm going to weld. I'm just going to bounce around, weld some of these verticals. I've got it clamped down to the table pretty good. It's pretty solid, so I'm going to start there. If I can get most of these verticals welded up, then I can start hitting some of these. I'll start with the corners and then bounce around, get this side done, then flip it over and get the other side. Alright, so I got the top side, all the verticals, and I went ahead and did the flats too. I just decided to go ahead and do everything I could do now. I'm leaving it clamped to the table until it cools and hoping that it doesn't shrink or turn into a banana. I was more worried if I hurried and flipped it and then welded the other side, that not being clamped to the table, that's usually when it decides to go its own way. So I'm just going to leave it for tonight. I'll flip it over tomorrow. I'll finish welding the other side and we should be good. We're pretty much dead on all our marks on the table. So finally got Bridger out here running the camera. Oh, I'm feeling faint. Oh. Anyway, almost 9 o'clock, so I think I'm gonna go in and get something to eat and see what we can't get done tomorrow. Hopefully I'll be able to knock it out tomorrow and get it up to powder coat on Wednesday and get it installed this weekend, I'm hoping, so we'll see what happens. Okay, we are back at it today. We're gonna go ahead and buff these smooth, clean them up, and then I'm gonna flip it over, weld the other side, and see if I can't get it cleaned up as well. Hopefully we'll be to the point where we can set our base plates and check our measurements, and we'll go from there. Okay, so that's all cleaned up. But the only problem we have is I took the clamps off. Everything feels good except when you get down here, oh, it ain't even that bad. Just a little bit. You can see it's raised up off the table a little bit. So that's not too big a deal. I think it's because we welded this complete side. We're gonna flip it over, clamp it back down, weld the other side, and it should fix it. So let's see what happens. Alright, so we got this all welded out. Just waiting for it to cool. So while it cools, I'm going to go ahead and lay out these last 3 base plates, get them ready to tack on. And I think we're going to do this piece a little different. I'm going to set up that piece of angle and pull my measurements and actually set these holes exactly to the measurement. I don't want it clear offset so it looks dumb, but we'll just see how it shakes out. So let's go to that point. Okay, so we pulled all our measurements on our base plates and they were all good. Everything was within 1/8 of an inch. I figured that was good enough where I oversized the holes. And it wasn't like it was off 1/8. It was like one hole was perfect, the other hole was within 1/8. So I didn't lay these base plates out, so it could be in these holes. it could be a couple things, but I decided that was probably close enough. If I have issues, I'll just grind out the holes a little bit with an end grinder, or I can tap the bolts over. So I got those welded out. Now I'm going to take my wire wheel and I'm going to just hit those welds, get the, you know, any spatter and coloring and stuff, just get all that crud off there. Do that, and that's going to wrap that up. So I'm hoping to haul this up to powder coat tomorrow. We'll see what happens. Alright, I do have 2 base plates to weld on that first section. I'm going to double check it with the angle one more time, and then that's going to be it. So okay, so we're back at it today. We're going to get this stuff loaded up and on the trailer and hauled up to powder coat, but before we do, I had to double check our measurements on these base plates. This base plate was just a little bit off, so I cut the tacks and tweaked it to where it's square just a little bit. And then I'm going to double check the measurement to make sure it's on, and then I'm going to weld these base plates out, clean them up, get them on the trailer, and we're headed for Tooele. So let's do it. We're off the powder coat. That work?
Yeah. We'll give you a call if we can get it the paint by this week,
Okay.
and if we can, we'll give you a call and let you know.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Have a good one.
That's it.
Alright, so we just got done dropping off the handrail. They said they hopefully can get it done before the weekend if they've got the paint in stock, so that'll be good because I'm hoping to go install it on Monday. So today is Wednesday, so that's what we're hoping for. So next time you see us, we should be picking up some handrail. Stay tuned. Okay, so we went ahead and picked up the handrail. Paint turned out really good. It was just what we were looking for. We brought the four-wheeler along because we figured that was the easiest way to get those up the narrow road, especially the 14-footer. So that was our game plan, and all we had left to do was make the long drive up the canyon and get to work. So here we go. Well-known homes up here is probably Post Malone. He lives right here at the mouth of the canyon, so we're gonna go up the canyon, and it's a long winding road, so we still got probably 30 minutes to get up there, but okay, so if you look right here on your left, I've been told this is where Post Malone lives. I'm sure he appreciates me saying that. There's a gated community right here. You gotta go up that road, and then that big house right up here. They say that's it. You can see there's a booth right here. So anyway, we're gonna keep on trucking. So we just got here. The turnoff's just right up there past this restaurant. We're gonna get the four-wheeler unloaded and see if we can't get the big section of handrail rigged up so we can haul it up there. Here goes nothing.
So that big.
Sit up there. Hold this one. Up close.
Both of them all of them have to go this way.
That's scary.
I'll go get the sledge.
Let's try it again. Go down there. Go down there. Lift it back up. Is that close? Yeah, very close. No, go here. So on this one. Hands off. Hold it up. You got it? No, I need you to hold it up. Hey, hold it up. You got it? It's these three, right? Yeah. This one too?
Just a hair.
Let's try it. Okay, so we got this job wrapped up. We did have to massage the bolts a little bit with a hammer and use our end grinder to round out the corners just so that we could get everything to line up just right. But it actually turned out great. We're pretty happy with how they dropped on, and we got them all tightened up, leveled up. Powder coat turned out nice. So we got help from the two yahoos today. Couldn't have done it without them. Alright. Gonna wrap this one up. We're gonna see if we can't go find a hamburger to eat. See you next time. That's basically how I'm gonna build these sections of railing. Is just from basically and make our miter joints and make our miter joints. Can you hold this? Put your finger right here. That one mark has to be on that line. Good job. Holy. Okay, so we got these corners all rounded. These base plates are all cleaned up. I was gonna punch these in the iron worker, but the hole that's already in it is too big. Quiet down! We got some Peanut gallery over here. Yelling in the shop. So I was gonna punch them, but they're too close to the size that I want to go. I want to go 5/8, and I think they're 9/16. And that would just create a bunch of quiet. That would just create a bunch of burrs. So I'm gonna have to drill all of them. Just drill them all out. Ah! Ah! Goodness. Look at this savage. You quiet down. Quiet down. No yelling in the shop. Okay. Got my nice sharpened took the big square, squared it off the center of the hole, pulled the measure. Okay, here's what's cooking. I got this side all welded out. I gotta flip it back over and weld the other side. But I haven't welded the base plates up, and I'm getting a phone call. And I don't know who that is. I better answer it. Hello. Alright, so before I was so rudely interrupted on the phone. Alright. Alright.